It's something I also really enjoyed about this movie was the fact that it did feel, I mean, it feels like a spiritual Tarantino movie, but never in a way that felt like annoying.
We might have a problem.
Drive-by movies, you're watching
Fresh releases.
My name is Blaise.
And my name is James.
And this week we're talking about the brand new film, Sisu.
This is not about who's the strongest. This is about not giving up. We have a word for that in Finland.
Sisu is a prequel to John Wick, I think, because they showed the trailer before John Wick 4. I might be wrong about that, but anyways, the movie's about when an ex-soldier who discovers gold in the Lapland wilderness, he tries to take the loot into the city, but Nazi soldiers, led by a brutal SS officer, battle him. So this movie is basically about the Baba Yaga, which was John Wick, but I feel like this is the Baba Yaga of the 1940s. I had not heard of this movie, and then when I saw John Wick Chapter 4, I believe that's what it was called, in theaters, I saw opening day. This is one of the trailers that they showed right before the movie started, because it's also a Lionsgate film. But yeah, this movie seems to have caught a lot of people off by surprise. It played at Fantastic Fest, which I didn't hear much about it back then until I saw that trailer. But Blaise, what are your first initial thoughts coming out of Sisu?
I feel like Fantastic Fest has become, not that it's become less of a thing, but maybe the fact that like there's just so many events online all the time, so many film festivals, it almost feels like we're hearing less about the films that do premiere at Fantastic Fest. So that's maybe why it kind of fell off our radar, at least for, before it came out. But yeah, this is one of those films where I saw the trailer. I think I saw a TV spot while watching a baseball game and was like, whoa, that's like random. I feel like I've never seen like a TV spot besides something that's Transformers maybe. But yeah, this was one of those movies where I didn't really know much going into it, but after watching it, I'm like, who directed this? Who did this? And then I was pleasantly surprised to see that the same director that created one of the most twisted Christmas films of all time, Rare Exports, created this movie. And it has a lot of things that I really enjoyed about it. At the end of the day, it's kind of just like a wacky John Wick-esque style movie, but I feel like it went so far in the camp territory that I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. What's it called? Rare Exports has been on my list for a while, ever since everyone started hyping it up as one of the better Christmas movies out there, especially for horror genre fans as well. I'm not sure really what that movie's about, but I just heard it's a gory fun time for the most part. Versus this film, another gory fun part, basically. This movie's, really fun time. Like, I had just seen Inglourious Bastards this weekend at the New Beverly. That's the movie playing at Tarantino's theater this month on Friday nights at midnight. So, I was in a Nazi killing movie mood this whole weekend. So ending it with this movie is like a grand fun time. And I really enjoyed the action within this movie and kind of had more of what I wanted out of John Wick Chapter 4. Like, that movie wasn't bad by any means, but I was somewhat let down because I thought some of the stunt works and camera works are better in part 3 versus the closing chapter for that one. So this kind of had more of what I wanted with the over-the-top kind of gore and the more over-the-top action sequences too. Like, because the whole time, this guy's a superhero. He can't die and stuff. And this kind of stuff is easily impossible, but it still makes it such a fun watch. And honestly, I would have absolutely loved it if it went another notch to where at the beginning of the movie, he was possessed by a demon to survive all this crazy stuff, just because the movie does get so batshit wild with the violence and some of the survival skills of our main character Tommy. But it's a fun time.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the part where I'm like, after you get past the moment where there's some ridiculous, I think honestly for me this isn't really a spoiler because it's so early in the movie, but the first ridiculous scene of him chucking a mine is where you're like, okay, yeah, that's where we're at. We've crossed the threshold of John Wick where it's super serious. At least I do feel like I liked the first John Wick film because it had that element of camp that I do feel like they've lost every iteration more and more. They've gotten to a point where there's like literally no camp really there, but this had those elements. And it, of course it's got to take the John Wick formula of involving a dog throughout the movie, which I mean, I honestly thought going in that there's no way that dog was making it to the end, because in the John Wick film that dog doesn't make it to the end of the film.
Well, I was glad that that wasn't the motivation too, just because there was nobody where, I thought the motivation was going to be an animal, but the motivation was like a cat bracelet or something like that. And then another Ty West's movie before he got into the X trilogy, I think it was called like In the Valley of Violence. Yeah. The motivation also was a dog. So really, I thought that's where the direction was going, but it's a little bit more like, trying to get rich, basic story. Like, it's a story that's been done before for the most part, but it kind of felt like a refreshing breath of fresh air after just all the revenge plots we've been seeing of modern action movies that are a little bit more over the top with like, the premise is just revenge basically from something kind of dorky or cute. And so while this movie like kind of played with that trope, I felt like they did that on purpose, but just made the dog super smart and entertaining to watch.
Yeah, it's something I also really enjoyed about this movie was the fact that it did feel, it feels like a spiritual Tarantino movie, but never in a way that felt like annoying. Like there's other Tarantino-esque movies that just, they don't really make the mark and they just feel kind of annoying. Yeah, it didn't feel like an annoying Tarantino kind of rip-off movie, like maybe Smoking Aces or something like that steals all like the Tarantino motifs. It did though have like elements of Tarantino, but also had elements, especially with the music, that made it feel like almost like a Western. Even though it takes place in World War II, it feels more akin to like a Western revenge movie than a World War II movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that gritty, like just grayish look, because I always associate kind of Western movies with more like a, like of course with the desert feel, like you see a little bit more of like a yellow or orange tint towards, the skyline and giving it that desert feel, versus this movie is very gray and gloomy, kind of matches the area that the film it takes place in. But with most action movies these days, we're seeing a lot of neon or very vibrant colors and stuff, and so like it felt like interesting just seeing such a gloomy movie, and it matches like our main character because he doesn't have a whole lot of backstory for the most part, and also no dialogue also for the most part, without getting into much with him. But just like I like that he's more played off as like a legend, and this feels very legendary-esque for the most part, just because nobody knows anything about what's going on for the most part, and we're nearing the end of the war, and here are these troopers who are just like not ready to give up, not just the fight, but just going against a guy who they're told to kind of call off on, but they're like, no, this is just personal at this point.
I think that's was my favorite element of going back to John Wick. That's like my favorite element of John Wick 2 was always, John Wick as well, not the second film, but it was like, oh, John Wick was like this myth, this legend, and we got the same story here with Itami, where he's been known as the one-man army, like he could take out a whole army by himself solely, and we see that within moments of this film. So overall for me this movie was just very fun, campy time. Like it's literally like you have to let that part of your brain that's like, hey, this is unrealistic, out the door, because there's just moments in this film that are absolutely insane. And I thought that it had so many like fun elements to it. It's just a good popcorn movie.
Yeah, like you said, once you hit the mine scene, that's kind of where you lost it. Me, like I was like kind of taking it seriously the whole time, and then when it finally got to the point where he's like on fire underwater, and like doesn't even bother him, but then also when he's killing all the soldiers and sucking the air out of their throat, I was just like, what is happening? Like I just couldn't handle the movie anymore. Yeah, that's where I kind of lost it. But yeah, I was cracking up. Yeah, but what'd you think about the movie? It's now available to rent right now. It's also in some theaters, so if you've checked it out, leave a comment letting us know what you thought about the movie, and a great way to help support the show also is by watching it through our Amazon affiliate link.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And if you can't get enough of us here on YouTube, be sure to catch all our social media links down below for Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, as well as our own personal Letterboxd accounts. That'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new episode.